Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Senior ministers are meeting at the Prime Minister's country residence to try to reconcile their differences over Brexit. They're trying to reach agreement on their vision of the UK's future relationship with the EU after Brexit. From Chequers, here's our political editor, Laura Kunsberg.
What could break the calm of the country? Birdsong twittering across the home county's valley. Spring's plucky early buds bravely making their way. The zooming arrival of the Cabinet's cars, that's what. Darting into Chequers, hoping perhaps the rural peace might provide inspiration.
For more than a year, this group have been attempting to hammer out a compromise. But for decades, arguably, the Tory party has been trying and not always succeeding. So can they find one today?
They're not just here to enjoy the outdoors, but for vital talks. In a week, the Prime Minister wants to tell the rest of the world more of her plan for Brexit. The committee inside disagrees over how closely we should stick to the EU once we've left. Some compromise, not a dramatic breakthrough, is what to expect.
If you look at what happened back before the December European Summit, there was a lot of speculation that the Cabinet would not reach agreement. We all agreed a position that the Prime Minister took to Brussels and got a very successful outcome. And all of us in the Cabinet are determined to get the best possible deal for every part of the United Kingdom.
Every modern Tory who's had the keys to this place has had to deal with splits over Europe. Government insiders suggest, though, it's only Boris Johnson who is really likely furiously to dig in. One minister told me the Brexiteers today will be reminded firmly of the consequences of failing to agree. But there are nerves and suspicion on both sides in the Tory party, and their outside rivals don't expect much.
It won't last, and what our problem is that in trying to deal with the government and be responsible as an opposition, work with them where necessary, we never know from day to day, one, who's in charge, and two, what the policy is.
The fact the committee's hidden away for hours tells you how sensitive this is and how hard it might be to find a deal. One former minister told me if everyone's happy at the end, it's a fudge. For something genuinely to be decided, someone will have to be unhappy. But there is a sense at the top of government now. Some political sacrifice is needed in order to make progress with Brussels. Even though Theresa May well knows there are some in her party who don't want to tolerate her giving any ground.
Yet whatever's decided here, it's then time to persuade the European Union. Any negotiation needs compromise. The choice for government tonight is who has to give and who will take.
And Sophie, if this all feels as remote as this countryside location, two very important things to remember. These meetings are about whether or not the government can actually stick together when there are such divisions inside its own party. It's not likely, but it is possible that one minister or two might be so cross about the decisions that they end up flouncing out. But more importantly than that, the decisions that are made or not made in the next few hours and the next few weeks on Brexit will shape the future of our economy, our jobs and our livelihood, and our relationship in future with the rest of the world.
Laura Kunsberg, thank you. The number of EU citizens leaving the UK reached its highest level for a decade last year, but official figures also estimate that overall there are still more people coming to Britain than leaving. Our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford has been looking at the figures and is with me now. Daniel.
Yes, Sophie, ever since the Brexit vote, businesses and politicians have been keeping a close eye on the number of EU citizens coming to and leaving Britain, and today's figures did reach something of a milestone. In the year to September, the number of EU citizens leaving Britain for good reached 130,000, and that is the highest figure for a decade, the highest figure, in fact, since the financial crash. However, it's worth saying that at the same time, in that same year, 220,000 EU citizens moved to Britain to work. And so the figure, the number of people who are moving here still outstretches the number of people leaving by around 90,000, though that 19,000 overall figure is the lowest since September 2012. Why? Well, the Office for National Statistics warns that the reasons why people move around the world are quite complicated, but Brexit may well be a factor, and certainly people that we've spoken to who are leaving say that they're doing so partly because the pounds that they're earning are worth less on the international market, and partly because they simply feel less welcome here.
Daniel, thank you.
Theresa May and 11 of her senior cabinet ministers are huddled deep in talks tonight at Chequers, the Prime Minister's Buckinghamshire country house. There's only one item on the agenda. You guessed it, Brexit. The meeting started with afternoon tea and is expected to continue well into the night, presumably with something more stiff to drink. Mrs May summoned the special meeting at the Brexit cabinet to thrash out the government's Brexit policy in more detail. Well, our political correspondent Michael Crick is in Chequers tonight. Michael, any news from where you are?
I'm afraid not. We're not likely to hear anything till late tonight, or indeed maybe not even then. But it can't have been an easy meeting, I don't think, this afternoon. I was talking to a Conservative Brexit figure who's fairly close to the whole Brexit issue, who's saying that he thought that the Brexit ministers, Boris Johnson, Liam Fox and so on, would be kicking up a horrendous row, an almighty punch-up, he said, over the government papers that were prepared for this meeting, which, according to this source, suggested that not only might Britain be willing to accept EU regulations on the trade in goods after Brexit, but also any new regulations after Brexit that the EU might decide. Another suggestion in these papers, apparently, is that Britain might actually cough up its £35 billion or so divorce bill before the final deal is struck. Meanwhile, today, the European Commission have been making it clear that this meeting here in Brexit will be a complete waste of time if Britain wants to try and cherry-pick those parts of the single market that it likes and to ignore those bits it doesn't.
From their punch-up to cough-up, what about the Labour Party? Apparently there's been quite a significant development there too.
Indeed, the Shadow Foreign Secretary Emily Thornberry tonight has confirmed what we've been expecting, and that the Labour has changed its policy and is now in favour of Britain becoming a member of a customs union with the European Union. And she says that would be pretty much like the current customs union. Now, the significance of that is there could well be a majority in Parliament for that policy if you take the other opposition parties and a smattering of Tory rebels, and indeed a couple of Tory rebels, Anna Soubry and Ken Clarke, in the last few days have been putting down amendments in favour of the a customs union policy to the trade bill. And so it's quite possible that the government could be forced by MPs into a very significant change in its stance on our relationship with the European Union by Parliament, no matter what the ministers behind me decide in the subcommittee here at Chequers.
Indeed. Thanks, Michael. John.
Now, a sharp drop in EU immigration has been revealed in net migration figures published today. It may be good news for the Prime Minister's pledge to bring down net migration to the hundreds of thousands, but many argue there is a heavy price being paid for tightening immigration controls, unfilled positions in the care sector and across manufacturing. Our senior Home Affairs correspondent Simon Israel has spoken to one couple at the coalface of the reforms, who've just been told they have to leave after a decade of caring for the UK's elderly.
More immigration figures today offer more signs of the impact government policies and Brexit are having on the flow of migrants, both from the EU and from outside it. In 2010, David Cameron vowed to bring net migration down to tens of thousands within 5 years. The figure then stood at 256,000. Over the next couple of years it dipped, but then rose sharply from 2013, and by the target year the estimated figure was 332,000. Since then it's fallen steadily and now stands at around 250,000, but still way off any five-figure target.
I think that the figures show that people coming here with a specific job to come to are actually going to come here and contribute to the UK, and we're sending a very clear message that we want them still to come.
Many argue there's been a heavy price to pay for Theresa May's hostile environment for illegal immigrants. Too many unfilled vacancies in the care sector, and hospitals struggling to fill qualified staff posts. Jinky and Godfred Drillen are professional care workers. They've been caring for the elderly and the vulnerable in England for more than a decade. They now find themselves under threat of being sent back to the Philippines. The Home Office has today turned down her application yet again to extend her Tier 2 work visa. Unaware the immigration rules had changed, they missed a deadline.
It's like too much below the belt bullying from me and my family. For almost 10 years we've been paying our tax. We have to work 50 to 60 odd hours every week just to keep, to keep us the head above water.
Both of you work 50 to 60 hours a week.
We can.
So that's 120 hours a week.
Yes.
They have 3 sons who have all made their lives here. It's the 3rd time immigration officers have come after the family when the couple have applied to extend their status here. On previous occasions, the Home Office relented and admitted making mistakes. But not before it cost the family tens of thousands of pounds to get them through what they describe as bad and difficult times. Why do you find yourself close to tears?
It was we didn't have a job. The kids we couldn't register in the GP
because
we didn't have passport. All of our passport has been retained by the Home Office, so we couldn't get a job. We couldn't get a job. We couldn't get a bank statement, a bank account. We have a bank account, but it's been stopped. We have loads. We are all in debt, both of us.
There have been other sacrifices too. The couple had twins a year ago, but they have sent them back to be looked after by family in the Philippines because they couldn't afford the cost of childcare here.
I cannot afford paying child care here, Simon. I mean, we don't have benefits from the government. I can't. We are not allowed to take benefits in the government, so I can't look after them, and I'm working full time.
Plus, we were.
How hard was that?
It is very hard, of course. Homesickness is one. You know, it's you feel that you're missing them, but they are too far.
The family are now living here on borrowed time. The boys can't enrol at college with their future so insecure. They are to ask for another Home Office review.
They're in a really quite a bizarre situation, which is not only bizarre and unfair, but also unlawful. If we look at the situation at the moment, 18% of the UK population is aged over 65. There are huge shortages, both in care homes and in the NHS, to fill care worker positions. The UK population simply aren't filling those positions.
Several hospitals and NHS trusts have openly admitted struggling to fill posts requiring qualified staff. 14% of doctors employed by the Cambridge University Hospital Trust, for example, come from outside the EU. In the last few weeks, the Home Office refused visas to 2 doctors offered jobs in intensive care by Addenbrooke's Hospital.
There are hundreds of thousands of vacancies in the NHS. We really desperately need these doctors in order to safely staff our rotas. We have excellent overseas doctors who want the jobs. We've interviewed them, we've appointed them, they have all the exams. We want them to come here, they want to come here. And it's really frustrating for them to be turned down. And the message we're sending out to our overseas colleagues and friends is a terrible message.
It's absolutely critical that we have skills policies and training policies so that people within the UK can have those employment opportunities that are clearly there and are crucially important to our society. But anybody on the shortage occupation list will not be turned away due to the Tier 2 cap on visas.
But not the Drillans, it seems, victims of a rule change that took away recognition of her senior care worker qualifications.
We have contributed to the community. We have worked hard as well. You know, we've done nothing wrong. So why should we stop fighting?
So you both feel you belong here?
Oh. Yes. Yeah.
Despite the fact that the immigration has been pushing us out, or the keep declining our application, but we still do. I love working here. I love looking after. I love my job.
Yes, we love our job.
Looking after the residents in a care home or community.
They have not lost hope. They will ask for another Home Office review, and if that fails, they will once more take their case to a judge to determine their fate. The Home Office would not comment.
Simon Israel reporting.
I've been getting